Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark is a game that just recently dropped on the Nintendo Eshop. It's been out for a while on other platforms, but it's brand new to the Nintendo Switch. Now, Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark is quite an interesting game for me. Reason being is it is a follow-up, for me at least, directly to a similar game in a similar vein and a similar style, Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now, Fire Emblem Three Houses isn't a strategy tactical RPG, it's just a strategy RPG, but with that being said, Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark is in a similar style to that, so if you're like me, you can't help but compare the two, and partially that's what we'll be doing through the review here today. Now, one thing I do need to let you know before we get into it is review code was provided to us. Now, this game was developed by a small indie studio called 6i Studio, and it was published by 1C Entertainment. Now, what I'm here to tell you guys today is I want to dive into, is it worth it? Is this game worth it? Is it worth the purchase? Is it worth you looking at it on the Nintendo Switch or whatever platform you happen to own, because this game is everywhere, PlayStation 4, Xbox, and PC. So if you might have missed it on one of those other platforms, or if you're like me and like to play these style of games on the Nintendo Switch because handheld is just so awesome, then I'm here to tell you if it's worth it today. Now, if it's your first time here, I'm Dom from The Game Looters. I appreciate you guys coming through the channel. Please make sure you guys subscribe. It really helps us out, and would love for you to be part of our community here on YouTube. And if you like the video, please go ahead, hit that thumbs up button, hit the like button, and if you don't like it, either because you're not a fan of the game, what I said wasn't what you weren't a fan of, or you just don't like me, that's fine too. Give it a big old thumbs down. Either way works. We just appreciate you guys clicking on the video and watching here. Okay, so we're going to talk about Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark. We're going to talk about the gameplay. We're going to talk about the graphics, the sound design and music, and just what we thought overall of the game. So first off, I will start off with talking about the gameplay. Now, right when we jump into the game, the first thing I really have to talk about is the joystick, whether on handheld or on the docked mode, is turned off. And that was such an odd option, especially because I did just transition for Fire Emblem Three Houses, where you can move freely with both joysticks as far as picking which position that you want to move your units in. Now, with this game, it's turned off right from the bat. Now, that is weird, but in the options, you can turn it back on, and you can have that be an option. Now, reason it's off is because the D-pad is more precise, but if you know the Nintendo Switch, the standard Joy-Cons don't have D-pads. They have these weird buttons because of the way you're supposed to play the Nintendo Switch. So, it does definitely make it in handheld a little bit odd, and it feels a little clunky. So, I definitely would suggest turning it on, because even though the D-pad's more precise, just having the gamepad, the thumbstick being an option is just such a better way to play, in my personal opinion. Now, it's going to be up to you when you pick up the game, if you do that, but that's the one thing I will say from the start. Now, coming from a game like Fire Emblem, the combat is definitely more traditional, and it does lack, I guess I could say, like the free-flowingness of games such as Fire Emblem, or even like the more recent like Wargroove. But now, I'm not necessarily a fan of this genre, so I do want to kind of put that out there, is I only really like specific games within the genre, being like one or two games, but as what we do here is I want to be open to different style of games that I may not have been a fan of in the past, because what I've been finding out more and more recently is as I try new games, I'm finding out a lot of genres or a lot of games that really appeal to me and that are just a really good time. Now, with all that being said, I just really wasn't able to choose how I wanted to move characters in this game. Like I was saying, with Fire Emblem Three Houses, it's just kind of free-flowing. But instead, in this game, each character, the way you move in the battle system, it's based on speed. So depending on what character, enemy, or you is quicker, that's kind of how it is. It's speed based. Now, what's really weird is while you're in battle, you have control of character A, and let's say character A is faster. So you pick where you want to move on the battlefield for character A. Then what happens is it moves on to character B, or the enemy. then it moves on to character C, and then the enemy, and so on and so forth. Now, for me, this was extremely aggravating, especially, again, like I said, coming over from a game like Fire Emblem, to where when I have X many units on the field, I could pick who I wanted to move, and then where, and in what order. When a turn was done, I could pick whoever I wanted. In this game, it forces you to, this character is the fastest, so they get to move first. I can't pick my favorite character like Lana. I have to instead go with Kairi, because Kairi was faster in that specific situation. And I actually really did not like that at all. I would have really loved for me to have the option to pick which character I wanted to move first. Although I get why they did it, it's just a little aggravating because sometimes if I have a character that I know has a elemental advantage against a certain enemy type, I have to wait 3 turns because they're also super slow. And that honestly does kind of suck. But either way, you can't move that way, and the way that it's done is because each direction that the character moves, the element at play is kind of the enemy, or you can sneak up on a different character, and at the end of each turn, it forces you to pick a direction, left, right, front, or back. Now, this was an element of the game that I thought was pretty cool at first, but honestly, it got kind of tiresome as I kept playing on in the game. And it's something that I kind of wished necessarily I wasn't forced to do, or I wish they would have kind of picked a different way to do it. Otherwise, the option elements such as character feelings different from each other and having very different feels from one another are really just great. This comes in the form of like classes and subclasses. Now, they all perform and grow really different. I think where the game really shines as you can go super deep into each class and subclass, with each character having both of these styles. You can really design each character in the image of your choice, either from Mercenary or Knight or a Templar and so on and so forth. Falsil really does this, a notch above its competition, and on the Switch, honestly, guys, it's really a short list of competition that this game has. Now, lastly, on gameplay, the game is actually super hard. Being unprepared will absolutely just punish you. It'll wreck you. But that's kind of part of the fun and the replayability of the game. But it does challenge you to go back to other levels and just kind of level up further and then come back and try it again. And unlike games like Fire Emblem, there's no permadeath. So rather than being permadeath or losing a character, there's an injury system. And let me tell you, I have a character injured constantly. Again, like I said earlier, Lana was my favorite character by far. And she was injured in at least 3 different battles in a row. And it was devastating because either I just couldn't use her, I chose not to, or when I did, she was just severely at a disadvantage. I give the game, honestly, just on gameplay alone, definitely play it if this is your style of game. Now, graphics, this game looks fantastic on handheld or in dock. Because of the graphic style that they chose, it definitely does stand out, and it is artistically just beautiful. The one thing I didn't like, though, was how the characters are realistically modeled. I would have loved a more cartoony feel to them because the game has more of a cartoony vibe. Like I said, Lana's my favorite character, and I love how she kind of looks like Korra from Avatar when she's on the field, but when she's not on the field, like her real life depiction is kind of, I don't really like it at all. I definitely prefer the 2D style stuff, and if they would have just went with that, I think appealing to people like me would have gained a big win there. I would say graphically, this game gets a huge pass. Artistically, although it is beautiful, I think that they made some weird decisions as far as making the characters too realistic. Now, sound design and music. The sound is pretty good, but the voice acting in the game is actually not great. Some voices do really well to just convey what's going on, and they really set themselves apart. But then others, such as enemies or just like your one-off characters, don't sound great. And the game really isn't fully voiced either, which sometimes some things being voiced and some things being not voiced is kind of odd. But the game does try to get you in via text and having most of the dialogue being text in form. But it depends on how you like it, but it's something that you might be used to, especially if you're a fan of the genre. Lastly, music is a super strong point for the game, although it's not as punchy as other games like Fire Emblem and stuff where it sets the mood. This is more of an ambient music, kind of like background music, that sometimes takes you in, sometimes might take you out. But, as far as the music, I do give the music a pass, but it wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't bad. I will say that it could have definitely been a strong point. if they just spent more time trying to set the vibe with like specific like punchy music, but instead it's just more ambient. Overall, I really say Fail Sail Arbiter's Mark. If you are a tactical RPG, strategy RPG fan, you should take a look at this. The price is good. You can find it on sale. I'm sure it will be on sale in the eShop. But even if it's not, I really say this one's a great purchase. And if you like that genre, then this one really sets itself apart, especially on the Nintendo Switch. And even on other platforms, on the PC, Xbox, or PlayStation 4, I still say give this one a try. Overall, is it worth it? Again, you have to be a fan of the genre. I say yes, it is worth it. But if you're not a fan of the genre, and maybe you just like surface level games, maybe such as like Fire Emblem, like I was saying earlier, then I probably would say pass on this one, because you might make an investment and not spend as much time as you thought, just because it's a little more convoluted and complicated than games such as Fire Emblem. Guys, this has been Dom from the Game Looters. I appreciate you guys coming by for another review and another Is It Worth It video. As you guys are seeing right now on the screen, I have a review of Fire Emblem 3 Houses on the screen right now. I would appreciate it if you guys click on that and go check that out on what we thought about Fire Emblem 3 Houses. And right next to it, there's that subscribe button. Please don't forget to subscribe, come back for another video very soon, and like on your way out. I'll see you guys on the next one.